So Deontay Wilder returns to winning ways with a first round, one punch, highlight reel knockout over Robert Helenius. Let's talk about it. Well, going into the fight, Deontay Wilder was coming off back-to-back knockout defeats, and Robert Helenius was coming off back-to-back knockout wins. So when Wilder started moving around from the opening bell, circling the perimeter of the ring, it's possible that Robert Helenius read that as Wilder being unsure of himself. And obviously Helenius had said that he wanted to emulate Tyson Fury's tactics going into the Deontay Wilder fight. So maybe he thought that things were going exactly his way and that Wilder was maybe scared of getting hit or scared of getting mauled by a big man again. But I think Deontay Wilder was luring Robert Helenius into a false sense of security. Based upon the pad work I saw Wilder do with Malik Scott and obviously coming in very light again, I think they trained to fight this way. Now, obviously, there's familiarity there because Helenius is a former sparring partner of Deontay Wilder, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on. But yeah, I think he lured Helenius into a full sense of security, and Helenius has always been a guy that stands straight up. He isn't the most difficult to hit, and in this instance, he backed Deontay Wilder up to the ropes in the final moments of the first round, and perhaps he didn't believe that Wilder could generate power from such a short distance because Wilder normally needs to extend his right hand to get serious power on it, although he has knocked some people out with shorter right hands before, as we saw in the Artur Spilka fight. So yeah, Helenius probably didn't think Wilder could get power from that kind of range, but he did. He walked Helenius onto a right hand, and that's all she wrote. Helenius went down heavy. He was out cold with his eyes open, body quivering. And when you see that, obviously, the guy's not going to beat the count. Now, even though it was a short fight and there isn't a ton of analysis to do on a fight like that, I thought that they were good tactics by Deontay Wilder. In all three Tyson Fury fights, Wilder tried to meet Fury head on. He'd never switched up the tactics in any three of the fights. Now, in the second fight, you might be able to forgive him for it because perhaps he thought he was going to knock Fury out, carry on where he left off in the 12th round of the first fight. But going into the third fight, I thought that was a horrible tactical error by Team Wilder to bulk him up and then have him just go at Tyson Fury head on. I always felt as though that would almost certainly backfire because you've got a guy who naturally is, weighs, 212, 214, and you've put an enormous amount of muscle on him. That's going to slow him down and it's going to seriously impact his stamina. He might look strong and sharp for a couple rounds, but after that, he's going to be gassing like crazy. And that's what happened. And in the lead up to that third Deontay Wilder-Tyson Fury fight, you guys may remember that I was saying Wilder should do exactly what he did in the Robert Helenius fight. Come in light and move around the ring. Tyson Fury's 270-something. You come in 214, 215, and use that to your advantage in terms of forcing Tyson Fury to chase you, frustrate him a little bit, and then look to catch him with something coming in. And I'm not saying that if Deontay Wilder used those tactics against Tyson Fury, he would have won. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that he would have given himself a better chance. And if you notice in the third Fury-Wilder fight, when Wilder actually scored that first knockdown against Fury, what scenario was it? It's when Fury was coming forward aggressive and Wilder walked him onto a right hand. And the reason that I think those tactics are much better against Fury than trying to go at him, as he did in all three fights, is because Wilder, when he's on the front foot, tends to telegraph his right hand. He cocks it back and he will telegraph it so you can see it coming. And especially if you're a skilled fighter like a Fury or any of these guys, they're going to see that tell on Wilder's right hand when he's coming forward. But when Wilder's going backwards, for whatever reason, there's far less of a tell on his right hand. He can walk you onto it where you don't see it, you don't expect it. You see, Wilder's far more effective at defeating higher level fighters if he can walk them onto shots. Even against Luis Ortiz in the first fight, where Ortiz was a lot better than he was in the second fight, the first knockdown came off of a right hand where Ortiz was backing Wilder towards the ropes. And that's another fight where Wilder was very light, backing Wilder towards the ropes, and Wilder walked him onto a right hand, which hurt him. And then he went on to follow up with more punches and produce the first knockdown. So yeah, if Wilder had used those kind of tactics against Fury, I think he would have had a better chance. Not saying he would have won, but he would have had a better chance. At the end of the day, he did still drop Tyson Fury. So yeah, I think that this is the right weight for Deontay, around 214, 215. I don't think he should be any higher than the low 220s. I think he needs that foot speed, not only to get across the ring to land the right hand, but to move out of the way of some of these big guys. Don't try to meet them head on. Walk them onto the shots. You've got foot speed on a lot of these guys. He had the foot speed on Helenius. Use it. So, yeah, that's my take on the performance and the tactics and what have you. But I also want to say something briefly about the matchmaking. I thought this was brilliant matchmaking by Team Wilder. And I'm not even being sarcastic or facetious or anything. I thought this was brilliant matchmaking because here you have a guy in Helenius who's coming off 2 knockout wins over Kalnacki, who was previously undefeated. So that's a good look going into the fight, right? Especially when Wilder's coming off 2 knockout defeats. However, Helenius is a former sparring partner of Wilder. So Wilder knows this guy. He knows how he moves. He knows his speed. Probably knows whether he's vulnerable, etc. There's a familiarity there. So that is going to alleviate, if there were any doubts, if there was any tension or demons in Deontay Wilder's mind, going in there with someone who you're very familiar with, who you've had in as a sparring partner, somebody who you class as a friend, that helps to alleviate any nervousness or tension or anything like that. It's like when I was growing up, I got 5 brothers, right? So I had loads and loads of fights with my brothers. Busting each other's lips and punching each other up. Loads of fights. Having a fight with your brother is never as nerve-wracking or as tense, even if your brother's bigger than you, right? Because I'm the biggest of my brothers now, but obviously growing up, my older brothers were bigger than me. So at a time, older brothers might bang me up in a fight or whatever, one of them, and I'd go back and fight him again on another day for whatever reason. And I wouldn't feel scared, I wouldn't feel tense or whatever. It's your brother at the end of the day. I guess you think he can only go but so far, right? But either way, there's a fear that comes from the unknown. When you're fighting someone that you've never fought before, that's when it can create extra tension. With Deontay Wilder and Helenius, I mean, he's even, not that Helenius actually is his brother, obviously, but he's referred to Helenius as his brother. So that familiarity, I think, helped Wilder from a psychological perspective going into this fight. And also the fact that Helenius is a vulnerable fighter. 3 fights ago, he got knocked out by Gerald Washington. I mean, who gets knocked out by Gerald Washington, people? The guy's like 40 years old now. He was 38, 39 then. And he knocked Helenius out badly. Outboxed him and knocked him out. That is a terrible sign. If Gerald Washington is knocking you out, God help you when you get in the ring with Deontay Wilder. So they picked a vulnerable opponent, but an opponent coming off 2 good wins. All right, someone that Wilder's familiar with. I think it was great matchmaking. But in terms of ticking all the boxes, you can class him as semi-credible because of the fact that he's coming off 2 knockout wins against a previously undefeated fighter. He's got experience. He's a big guy, right? Like Tyson Fury, he can punch. So these are boxes getting ticked in terms of public perception, the way the public are going to view it. But then you also have other boxes from a managerial perspective that are being ticked. Okay, he's got those pluses, but he's also vulnerable himself. Got beaten by Gerald Washington. Every time he's stepped up, he's been defeated. Dylan White beat him. Chisora really beat him back in the days. He got knocked out by Johan Duopa, knocked out by Gerald. So he's vulnerable. So I just think it was brilliant from a matchmaking perspective. And to be honest with you, I think Eddie Hearn, who's having a difficult time at the moment, should take a leaf out of the book of Deontay Wilder's handlers when it comes to trying to bring Anthony Joshua back. Because the names that Eddie Hearn has been talking about for AJ, in my view, they're not good names for the comeback fight for AJ. Somebody coming off, like Wilder, back-to-back defeats, who still hasn't got the ghost of the Andy Ruiz defeat out of his mind. A guy like that doesn't need to be brought back and put in with Otto Wallin. Not that he can't defeat Otto Wallin, but I don't see him walking through Wallin. I don't see him putting on the kind of performance that's going to have people saying, wow, AJ's back. This is incredible. If he can do this against Wilder, then he'll knock Wilder out. No, that's not the kind of opponent that's going to allow AJ to look devastating, in my view, Otto Wallin. No, it's not. That's an awkward opponent. So unless you're looking to go straight back in with Alexander Usyk, I see no reason from a managerial perspective why you'd put AJ in there with an Otto Wallin in his next fight. I think that's terrible matchmaking from Eddie Hearn. And he has been accused over the years of poor matchmaking. But the thing is, when AJ was world heavyweight champion, I've always had the view that if you call yourself world champion, you should be willing to fight anyone. Or else, why have you got hold of those belts? But now that AJ is no longer champion, now he has the opportunity to take it down a couple levels. And to give you some examples, when Mike Tyson, who is viewed by many as the greatest heavyweight of all time, not me as such, but many people believe he's the greatest of all time for whatever reason. He was certainly a explosive and dangerous heavyweight. When Mike Tyson got knocked out by Buster Douglas, who did he come back against? Was it Razor Ruddock straight away? Was it even George Foreman? Was it, a young up-and-coming Riddick Bowe, whoever, right? No, he didn't come back against anyone like that. When he got knocked out by Razor Ruddock, he came back against Henry Tillman. Okay, now Henry Tillman had some success in the amateurs. He'd obviously outpointed Tyson when they were teenagers in the Olympic trials and the Olympic box-offs. But as a pro, Tillman had been knocked out by Holyfield and, had suffered a few defeats. He wasn't any match for Mike Tyson by the time they met as pros at all. That was a soft touch they gave Tyson in his first fight after the Douglas defeat. But you know what? It was exactly what Mike Tyson needed. He needed to feel like that old destroyer again. See, a lot of people on the outside don't understand the process of confidence building that boxers go through, why it's necessary. Some fighters, it's less necessary than others. But for Anthony Joshua, who clearly in the eyes of, I think, most of us, is suffering a confidence problem, then you don't want to stick him back in there against someone who's going to be awkward for him or difficult for him, even if he beats them. You want to stick him in there, in my view, against a couple of real knockover jobs at first, where he can go in there like the AJ of old, before he'd even fought Dylan White, blasting people out of there. And again, take a leaf, for in this particular instance, out of the book of Deontay Wilder's people. I'm not saying that AJ's career should have been handled the way that Wilder's career was handled overall, not at all. Okay, so don't get it twisted. I'm saying in this particular instance, the way they're bringing Wilder back right now, this is what they should be doing with AJ. Careful, clever matchmaking. Now, in terms of potential opponents for AJ coming back, I was talking to some people in my Element group, and a couple names came up as we were chopping it up, going back and forth. I think Gerald Washington would be a good name for AJ, actually, because they can say, look, Washington just, in his one of his previous fights, I think the second to last fight, knocked out Robert Helenius. So you can't complain about Washington. This is a guy who knocked out Deontay Wilder's last opponent, you see? And of course, Washington looks physically impressive. He's a big guy, 6'6". I think he might have retired earlier on this year, but if he's offered the AJ fight, he's going to come out of retirement. Right? So big guy, 6'6", athletic, but he isn't the most gutsy guy in the world. No disrespect to Gerald Washington. Not the most gutsy guy in the world, vulnerable, not a massive puncher. He's got some power there, but he's not a massive puncher. He is a guy who AJ could look good against. And again, they've got that, from a PR perspective, thing where they can say, this guy actually beat Helenius, Wilder's last opponent. He's better than Helenius. Do you know what I mean? So that's one name. They're talking about Chris Arreola as an opponent for AJ. Again, I don't think that's a good choice for Anthony Joshua right now. Based upon how Chris Arreola looked against Andy Ruiz, if he gets up for the AJ fight like he was up for the Ruiz fight, I don't think that's a good opponent at all. I think that's poor matchmaking if Eddie Hearn tries to go down that road. I think Arreola's too tough. Not that AJ can't beat him, but it's going to be hard to look devastating and get that confidence back and make him feel like a destroyer again. So the other name was Tom Schwartz. Yeah, Tom Schwartz. That's the level I think AJ needs for his first comeback fight, is Tom Schwartz. Tyson Fury fought Tom Schwartz after the first Wilder fight. It wasn't before, it was after. So if an undefeated, quote-unquote, lineal champion can take on Schwartz, why can't a thrice-defeated regular contender at this stage, Anthony Joshua, take on Tom Schwartz when he's coming off back-to-back defeats? I think it's perfectly reasonable. So those are two names that I would recommend for AJ's first After that, of course, you can step him up and put him in tougher fights. But for his first comeback fight, I just think he needs exactly what Wilder got here against Helenius. Somebody who is just going to make him look good and going to make him look devastating. Not someone who's going to make him really have to work for his victory. So yeah, long story short, I thought it was great matchmaking by Team Wilder and a great performance by Deontay himself. I hope he utilizes these tactics going forward against the big guys in the division. And even if he was to fight someone like an Alexander Usyk, the more aggressive Deontay is against Usyk, I have to imagine the more he's going to get countered. But if he fights Usyk, if he tries to get Usyk to come forward, I suspect Wilder will have more success like that. Not that I would pick him to beat Usyk necessarily, but I think he gives himself a better shot if he can get Usyk to come to him. Again, the last time he was in the ring with anyone who remotely resembled Usyk stylistically, and I say remotely, it wasn't Luis Ortiz, because Ortiz is not that fleet of foot. It was Artur Szpilka, who at the time I think might have been undefeated. And that was a very nip and tuck fight. I thought Szpilka was probably ahead in that fight. I don't know what the either judges or the pundits on the commentary team had it scored, I think they were just massively biased in favor of Wilder. But if you go back and watch that fight, that was very close. And Wilder knocked Spilker out. He was missing all his right hands throughout the fight when he was trying to be aggressive. But finally, Spilker actually got overconfident and he followed Deontay Wilder over to the ropes. And Wilder caught him with kind of a short right hand, similar to the one that he caught Helenius with, but this was almost like a semi-uppercut. And that was all she wrote. Artur Spilker was out cold. So yeah, it was a great knockout. And those tactics, I think, are going to be much better for Deontay Wilder moving forward. You know, as a guy in his late 30s now, he's not going to have the same energy as he had when he was younger. Obviously, losing the weight, I think, is going to help him. But as you get older, if you want longevity in boxing, you have to learn how to be sneaky, crafty, and make every punch count. You can't be trading off volume as you get older because you're just not going to be able to have the output. You're not going to be able to have the staying power that you were when you were a younger man. So get more crafty, get more clever. And if you do that, you might be able to actually extend Deontay Wilder's time in the heavyweight division as a top-level fighter for several more years. So that's my take on it. Give me your take in the comment section below. What did you think about his performance? What did you think about Helenius' performance? Do you, like me, agree that Deontay Wilder's tactics were spot on here? And look, I'm not saying he's any Bernard Hopkins. He's not even obviously any Tyson Fury. But you can only do the best with what you have. And I think this is Deontay Wilder at 214, moving around on a back foot, using that foot speed, walking people onto shots. This is him using what he has to the best of his ability in the most effective way. Now, I'm not saying that there won't be certain people that he should be more aggressive against and maybe go on the attack, but I reckon those will be more lower level guys and maybe smaller guys. But for the bigger guys and the more skilled guys, this is what he's going to need to do. So anyway, just talking in circles at this point. You get the picture. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below.